Hey YouTube, this is Southern Prepper 1. Another sandbox. I'm going to go over engagement areas. You set up a defense. You might have just quickly set the defense up and you haven't incorporated everything into it. But you're set up. You need to determine where your engagement area is. You just can't say we're going to attack them. You actually have to have a pinpoint location. So if you have a leader in your group, make sure he knows that. Our engagement area that will be known will be from the big tree all the way over to the bridge. We have a bridge, we have a river on our left, and we have a road running through our defensive area. So our engagement area is set. It is a definite defined space because we need to plan our defense around the engagement area, and basically engagement area is an area where you're going to engage the enemy, destroy them with all your weapon systems. I'm going to talk about indirect, I'm going to talk about direct, and the reason is you might be going against a force of little green men that have indirect weapons. And what are indirect weapons? Ones I'm going to concentrate on, they could have artillery, they could have mortars, and these are indirect weapons. You need to know how to implement into your plan. As a prepper or homesteader, you don't have these weapons, I understand that. But if I'm going to teach you, I'm going to teach you right. So, your engagement area is from the bridge all the way over to the biggest tree in the engagement area. Now, we're going to talk about those locations so you will know. So, you want to set up a defense. First of all, you need to identify the enemy's likely avenues of approach. You need to know, where's the enemy going to come from? He could come straight at you, he could come down that road. So you need to determine key terrain. So we picked this little knoll. It's a little higher elevation than at the bridge. And we've taken the key terrain, which is the higher ground. We're going to also look out and say, is there any natural obstacles or choke points that restrict the enemy's forward movement? Well, definitely a choke point is that bridge, because I got to cross it at the bridge. This river we have here is very deep. You could swim across it, but you can't get any mechanized vehicles across it. It's too deep, too nasty, too swampy. So to our left, we have a good natural obstacle, the river itself, against mechanized vehicles. Remember, people can cross it. So it does protect us from mechanical, but not from people crossing it. Now, you're thinking, what is the enemy's scheme of maneuvers? What is the enemy going to do? What is the purpose of the enemy being out here, the little green guys? Are they doing door-to-door searches for firearms? Are they doing a raid? What's their mission? Are they just on recon? Also ask yourself, what is their rate of movement? Are they moving really quick using vehicles? Are they going nice and slow? You need to know that, and that just comes from intel. The more intel you have, the better you can plan your defense. Also, try to find out what the enemy's response will be if they see you. The enemy might not make contact if you're not hostile, or if they see any firearms, that might mean a full assault against you. What is the enemy's reaction to you? You need to know that. The reason we want an engagement area, and we've picked our engagement area, because we want to mass our combat power. We want to direct everything we got, weapon system, into the engagement area to have results on the bad guy, the little green guys. What you're going to set up is some target reference points, and these are very useful because you can clearly identify them out on the battlefield in your engagement area. You can talk about them and people will know. If TRP is that biggest tree on the right, everyone will know. If you say direct fire on the TRP1, people know where to direct their fire. You can then, direct people off of that target easier than just trying to describe a point on the engagement area. Or for this exercise, TRP2 will be the bridge itself. This is important because if you are communicating with your friendly forces that have artillery or mortars, you can use those target reference points to put their fire on them quickly. You could have them actually engage target reference point 1. You can engage target reference point 2, or you can use and shift off of these points very easily because they will already have their firing data. The mortars and artillery would have set up on these points. They can set them all up, get all their data in their computer system set up if they can't see the target, and they'll be ready to go. They'll have the data to switch so they can be set on TRP1, and if you tell them fire on TRP2, they have the data. They don't have to calculate it. They just have to manipulate their weapon systems and get on target. Also, you're going to place your weapon systems. If you do have some fully automatic weapons, or if you only have some high capacity mags, ARs, AKs, you need to place those to do the most damage in the engagement area. You need to know your limitations of these weapon systems. You need to know the capabilities. You know, if you put an AR and you're 700 yards away or 700 meters away, you're really not really good in the capabilities of that AR. Yeah, you can put rounds in the engagement area, but you're really lacking. You might need to move up to a 308, or maybe you got a Barrett 50. So you need to know the capabilities and the limitations of all your weapon systems. Plus, when you pick that spot, do you offer protection for your guys? These guys had a little bit of time, so they actually had some sandbags and they built up their position, camouflaged it best they could with their time restraints, because they do not want to be detected. They do not want the little green guys to be able to detect their position, because as soon as their position is detected, then they can put more accurate fire on there. You'll also want to plan, you see we have 3 positions here. You want to make sure all positions are not in conflict. You want to put one position far enough back where you might actually let me fire into your forward position. And you want all, if you can help it, all of your positions with your team to be able to fire into all areas of the engagement area. Sometimes that's not possible, but try to do that so you can mass all of your fire into the engagement area. All right, we set up here. We need to think of what is our plan to integrate all our obstacles. And as I pointed out before in that last video, what is the purpose of an obstacle? Just don't say, hey, let's throw an obstacle up here. What is the purpose of that obstacle? It's disrupt. You're trying to stop his movement, get him all in the sense that he can't move forward. It just totally disrupts his movement and they have to replan. Or you might want to turn them. You might put obstacles. Right now there's no really obstacles down there to turn these guys because we didn't have time to set them up. Or your obstacle might be to fix the enemy in the engagement area. We could easily done that by doing something to that bridge. Even putting some stuff on that bridge that looks like it's booby-trapped would definitely slow them down. It would fix them in place until they investigate it. And if they're fixed in place in our engagement area, then all of our guys can fire into the engagement area. So right now we're using a slope. We're trying to use this river as an obstacle. Now granted, they can forge across the river, but as soon as they get in this river, it's so big, they're sort of combat ineffective and they might be washed downstream. Now remember, we could also, if we had time, we could reinforce this area in front of us with some log cribs, some rubble, ditches, craters, but we didn't have time to do that. All we had time is we threw up some protective wire sort of in front of us to give us some protection if they come up that hill, to slow them down before they get to us. We have to make sure when we follow this plan that the last thing we're going to do is we're going to conduct a rehearsal in the engagement area, and that could be a video all in itself. We're going to walk through what we're going to do, every step, how we're going to use our direct fire weapons, how we're going to use our indirect fire weapons. So remember, if We think that the bad guys are using these, or they're moving their forces with these. We have to change our plan a little bit, because their speed through our engagement area, if we don't have anything to slow them down, is going to be at a greater level than if they were just walking. Because if they're using tanks or other things, we might need items like this, be it regular military issued stuff or homemade stuff that is made. So hopefully you're taking notes. Engagement area. Identify likely avenues of approach of the enemy. Identify the enemy scheme of maneuvers. What's their purpose? Determine where you're going to engage and kill the enemy and destroy the enemy. This has to be a fixed location that everyone knows. Next, you're going to emplace your weapon systems. And then you're going to plan and integrate all your obstacles to keep the enemy in the engagement area as long as possible so you can destroy them. Then you're going to conduct and engage an area rehearsal before you get to mess with the enemy. Hopefully this helps. Thanks for watching.